The film opens with Milo Stanfield, a young man who appears to have autism. While watching a woman enter a florist and purchase some flowers, Milo is also performing a complicated analysis of the causes and effects of everything that is going on in his immediate surroundings. He detects a passenger bus approaching a pothole and a bicycle rider accelerating. After crossing the road and placing a ballpoint pen on top of a letterbox beside the pothole, Milo walks away confident that his plan will work. Suddenly, a car runs over the pothole and splashes some water on the pen, causing it to fall on the floor and attract the attention of an elderly man reading a newspaper. When the man bends down to pick up the pen, the speeding bicycle rider tries to avert his direction, causing him to strike the letterbox. The woman notices this as well, but she goes about her business as usual. As she starts to cross the street, the passenger bus driver becomes distracted by the commotion and ignores the red light, killing the woman instantly. He then leaves the scene, convinced that everything went according to plan. The scene after that introduces the lead character, Olivia Dunham. Olivia is a special agent with the FBI who participates in the Department of Homeland Security's Fringe Task Force, which investigates paranormal events linked to scientific phenomena. When Olivia enters her office after appearing to have a head injury, another peripheral officer named Charlie welcomes her. Charlie, the team's manager, guides the auxiliary officers during the inquiry and supplies his colleagues with all necessary supplies. While this is happening, the agency's director can be seen speaking with a lab assistant. Following a serious discussion, Philip Broyles learns why Walternet wants to keep the fake Olivia in this universe and why she had the real Olivia's memories implanted into her. Walternet also mentions that he wants to figure out how Olivia can travel between universes and use the technique to help others do the same without being hurt. It is then revealed that the Olivia inside the office is a fake one made to help her achieve her purpose. Next scene, Charlie tells his team about the 2 incidents that occurred in 2 days and also notes that someone died in each accident. He also tells his team that the events appear to be routine and cautions them to use caution while conducting the site investigation. Soon after the team arrives at the scene of the accident, everyone disperses in an effort to gather information regarding the accident's cause. It's here that we meet Agent Lee, another fringe officer, a young man with burn marks covering most of his face. He joins Charlie and his team and starts the site inspection as Charlie approaches the deceased woman's body and scans her fingerprint to determine that she was 32-year-old Julian Foster. Meanwhile, Olivia speaks with the bicycle rider and Agent Lee searches the area and finds a ballpoint pen next to the mailbox. When Olivia and Charlie approach him and inquire about the pen, Olivia replies that the bicycle rider told her that an elderly man bent in front of him, causing him to swirl and fall on the fruit shop's baskets. He is surprised to see such a strange pen on the ground and surmises that it has something to do with the case immediately. Olivia then hypothesizes that the disaster occurred when the elderly man leaned over to pick up the pen and the bicycle rider crashed into the fruit store. Finally, Agent Lee informs everyone that the pen is the primary factor that ignited a number of chain reactions and resulted in the accident. Back at Fringe's headquarters, Charlie and Agent Lee are seen attempting to connect the dots between the 2 accidents that occurred on 2 separate days. Charlie claims that he is unable to find any similarities between the accidents, while Agent Lee is convinced that the distraction and chain reaction caused by the ballpoint pen are to blame. To support his theory, Agent Lee also notices a connection between the accidents. In the following scene, Olivia joins Charlie and Agent Lee as they speak with a mathematician from a fringe agency named Astrid. Agent Lee describes the situation in detail and raises the possibility that someone may have calculated all the surrounding variables and influenced it in their favor. Astrid, however, dismisses this possibility and states that no human being is capable of doing so. However, as they are debating about it, a similar accident occurs, and the crew rushes to the scene where they see a bus almost running over an elderly guy. Olivia surmises that the murderer's attempt to kill the victim was unsuccessful this time. Meanwhile, Charlie interacts with the bus passengers and learns that a dog ran into the road, confusing the driver and leading to an accident. However, as Olivia advises an injured woman to remain idle, she notices a ballpoint pen that is similar to those used in earlier murders. As she looks around, she sees Milo watching them from an overhead bridge, and as a result of Milo's calculations, a bus approaches from behind and strikes a second man who is attempting to cross the road. When Olivia notices this, she rushes over to Milo and demands that he give up by pointing a gun at him. However, due to a bicycle that Milo had thrown just before Olivia arrived, a bus changed its course and drove directly underneath the overhead bridge, allowing Milo to jump from the bridge, land on the moving bus, and then flee. Milo leaves the scene and flees, arriving home to be met by his younger sister Madeline Stanfield. Madeline tells Milo that she's been receiving calls from the hospital on a regular basis, but Milo ignores her instead of saying that he has already observed Madeline's patterns and can predict her actions as proof, and feels superior until Madeline shows him a horse toy that his mother gave him before she passed away. Upon seeing the horse, Milo stops talking for a while and walks away, despite Madeline's best efforts to stop him. In the following scene, Agent Lee is brought to the hospital for his regular skin checkup, where he urges Olivia to investigate the case and discover the connection between the 3 victims. After that, Olivia returns to work with Charlie and speaks with one of the witnesses of the accidents while inspecting the victims, where she discovers that Arnett worked for Bryant Hospital and Julian worked for a company that owns a medical survey group at Bryant Hospital. Following the revelation, the pair rushes to the hospital and meets with Dr. Levin, the chief doctor. When Charlie says he wants to meet with the other doctors, Dr. Levin stops him and shows him a video of his patients. Olivia recognizes Milo in the video and asks Dr. Levin about him. Drive. Levin replies that Milo is their patient and joined them for a drug trial called a nootropic, which is specifically used for enhancing cognition. Furthermore, he mentions that Milo has gained the ability to use complicated mathematics accurately against anyone, but he is not responding to their calls for lessening the effects of the drugs and returning to his regular life. It turns out that Milo is killing everyone who is attempting to gain control of him and redo the drug effects in the following scene. After learning about Milo's guardian Madeline, Charlie and Olivia decide to go and visit her. Milo can be observed watching Olivia as they leave the hospital and noticing her recurring movement patterns. Charlie and Olivia arrive at Milo's home shortly after, where Madeline welcomes them. They tell Madeline about the crimes Milo has committed and inquire after his whereabouts. Madeline responds that Milo doesn't confide in her about anything. But when Charlie visits Milo's room, Madeline sends Olivia a letter informing her that she is leaving Milo and is tired of caring for him. She actually gave them the address of Milo in the letter, which turned out to be a hotel called Patricia. The two then decide to visit and check the location alone. Milo, who has the ability to foresee future events, can be seen at the Patricia Hotel's window imagining what will happen when Olivia and Charlie get there. As a result of his ability to foresee the future, he predicts that Olivia will chase him after she sees him there and that she will also die when she stops to take an oxygen break while running through a construction site. Meanwhile, in accordance with Milo's prediction, Olivia and Charlie arrive at the Patricia Hotel and discover Milo waiting for them. Milo then runs towards a construction site as Olivia and Charlie pursue him. Milo tries to watch Olivia's movements and takes all the necessary precautions to kill her, but, in contrast to what Milo had predicted, Olivia does not stop to take an oxygen break as a normal human being would. Milo is shocked to witness this and is quickly caught by Olivia as she avoids a large number of bricks that were about to fall on her. This shows that Olivia is not a native of this world. Charlie shows up as well and inquires of Olivia why she didn't stop earlier for the oxygen break, but Olivia herself seemed unaware of it. The doctor tells Olivia and Madeline that Milo's brain has developed to such a high level that no human other than a computer can understand his thoughts in the last scene, which takes place in an isolated room with a computer. The movie ends here. Please like and subscribe.